Hi guys, welcome to another edition of Let's Give It a Voice at the Sangley Show. I am AC, your host. Today is the third edition of a 4-part series on men's health, focused on the mind, the body, and the soul. And today we are going to look at men and anger, its effect on their mental health and those around them. On our show today, we have special guests. We have Dr. Ako Tabeta, we have Valentine Zeng, we have Cham Fomokom, and we have Bobe Titang, who will soon be bringing them in today. The music which will be playing in the background, I have no rights to the music, but one of our guests has 100% rights to the music because it's his newly released song, which was just released yesterday, and we are privileged to play it on our show today. And the title is Kolofata. So while it is playing, I'm going to bring our guest speakers who are already waiting backstage. So if you're just joining in, this is the Sunday show, and we are talking about men and anger, its effect on mental health and those around them. It is the third episode of a 4-part series on men's health, which we've been focusing on the mind, the body, and the soul. As I said, I do not have rights to the music playing, but one of our guest speakers has a right to this song because it's his newly released song and it was released just yesterday. Hello, Dr. Ako. You're welcome to our show today.
Thank you, IC. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Just once more for honoring our invite. Hello, Vali. You're welcome on our show today. It's a pleasure.
Hello, Clarence.
Thank you. It's a privilege having you today.
My pleasure as well. Thank you.
You're welcome. So while we are already live, we still have 2 more guests. Probably you must have had a delay, so we will continue with the show. While if they come, then we add them into the show, but we are going to continue at the moment. And just listen a little bit to the song. If you're just joining, you can share, you can invite your friends, because today we are going to talk about anger and men and the effect that this anger has on their mental health and also on those around them. There's this author called Jackson Katz. He's the author of the Macho Paradox, and he said, countless men deal with their vulnerability by transferring vulnerable feelings to feelings of anger. And it's known that being an angry man is good for the man himself, and it's not also good for his own family. So I'm going to continue with our guest speakers. Mr. Valentine, since you are new on our show today, we'd like to give you the honor to introduce yourself, then before I move over to Dr. Ako. And thank you once more.
Thank you so much, Clarice. I think I must begin by saying a massive thumbs up to yourself for the great initiative and the show which you are organizing. I think we're talking about a whole range of issues which tends to plague our society. So thank you so much for the show. For those who don't know me, my name is Valentine Zeng, and I'm the managing director of Springhead Consultancy International. We are a UK-based organization, and we are fighting poverty, not only in the UK, but in the global south as well. So we work on a whole range of people who are less privileged in the society, those who are in receipt of state benefits, and also those who need our help. So we are trying everything possible to make sure that the less privileged within our society will give them the necessary skills, knowledge, and resources for them to be able to become, make the best of themselves. I'm also the program manager of National Health Service in England, and I manage a whole range of programs and projects within the NHS. And also, I am an international development professional, and I do a lot of write-ups, in issues concerning our beloved African continent. So, I think the discussions today about, which is slightly different, from one of the things which I write a lot, but I think it's going to be an interesting insight, because you're going to learn a lot from us as well. So, just want to thank you for being here. Thanks.
Welcome. Thank you so much. And we are grateful that you accepted to be a guest on our show today. And we hope you will be able to continue being guests on our show. Probably next time we may focus on your area of interest, maybe.
Well, I think all is important. In a society of this nature, we always tend to focus on specific things, but I think to employ a more comprehensive, holistic picture and looking at life as it's supposed to be, I think that's really important. So yeah, that's fine.
That's true. Thank you. And Dr. Ako, I know I earlier said that this is the third episode of a 4-part series, and this is your third time on our show. Well, we just need another introduction from you, because we may still have the audience, we may still have people who haven't been watching the other 2 episodes. And I know you launched your music yesterday, Kolopata, so I'd like to talk about it as well. We are actually listening to it in the background.
Thank you, AC, for having me in this thankless show once more. Third edition of a 4-part series. I really appreciate you for what you're doing to bring awareness, consciousness to very vital topics. I am Dr. Ako Tabeta. I coordinate a day program in Massachusetts Avenue in the field of mental health. I also train the staff in the field of mental health. I write a course curriculum according to the Department of Behavioral Health guidelines. And I train staff, of course, in clinical interventions, in mental health, medication management, co-occurring disorders. Now, anger management. Anger is a very important topic. I've done quite some therapeutic sessions with patients who had serious anger issues, and that was just what they had. And we had to deal with that for years, about a year until they got better, sometimes months, depending on, yeah. So that is in the field of, that's what I just practice. Well, I'm also, an Afrobeat artist, and I just released Kolofata. Kolofata is a song because I lost colleagues on the front line. I lost nurses and, some doctors who were fighting against, we were fighting this pandemic. And so I wrote a song which was romantic, of course, very emotionally charged, which reflects an American nurse who traveled to Africa in Kolofata. Kolofata is in Cameroon.
Yeah.
I brought that into relevance because of what happened, the Boko Haram attack on Kolofata a long time ago. I brought that to relevance because it's something which has been important to me, So she went there to help COVID-19 patients, and she lost her life. So this is just to appreciate all those families who are mourning and grieving. And I'm saying that we can understand what you go through, but we appreciate the sacrifice of your family members who are gone. And the reason why some of us are alive today is because they went out to the land of duty and lived their lives, and we can enjoy such freedom. The pandemic is still going on, and I'm trusting God that we will fight it together wisely with wisdom. Yeah, so Kolofata is out there. It's on YouTube. Yeah, and I'm getting some good vibes. So thank you, AC.
You're welcome, Dr. Tabeta. And Yeah, we'll try our best to promote your new song. So
Thank you.
while we are still waiting for the other guest, so we can actually continue. So once more, our topic of discussion today is anger and men. Remember that June we celebrated Father's Day, and June is also Men's Health Month, and it's also statistics show that men also do have lots of health issues, but same as
Right.
women. But women do vocalize about their health issues more than men. So at the Sunday show, we thought it was a good idea. We bring men on the show so we could get them talking. We could get them into the conversation. So to bring out some of those things that trouble them or worry them, and most often they bottle them in
Right.
because of man ego or because it may equally be the way we were culturally brought up. And remember that at the Sunday show, we act as a voice of hope and advocacy to those who have faced issues, which most often they find them a taboo. They find these issues uncomfortable to discuss about, or sometimes they are very emotional or very sensitive issues that most often people are ashamed or they are afraid of being judged. So here at the Sunday show, we give a voice to such issues, and we create a safe space for men, women, and children to be able to speak out, to be able to get a conversation or to speak comfortably and confidently about these issues and not being afraid of being judged, being criticized, or being blamed for the way they are feeling. So today we are talking about anger. As I know, anger is a very normal emotion. It's one of those emotions that people will go through when they are grieving. It's normal, but when it's not when it stays for too long or when it's been bottled up for too long, that's when it becomes a problem. And the way you act when you are angry, that's where it becomes a problem. So on our show today, we are going to look at how anger affects people, how we interpret a situation or how we react to a particular situation can actually depend on a lot of factors in our lives. So some of these factors can be our childhood and upbringing. It can also be past experiences or even current circumstances like COVID. COVID has forced so many people to be at home all the time. There's no social, there's social distancing. People are isolating. People are no longer going out the way they used to go. People do not meet their friends or family as much as. So everything is happening under the same roof 24 hours. So, and the frustration, the fear, the effect of this, of COVID can actually lead to anger. And it depends on how you react towards your anger or about with your anger will depend on so many factors, as I have mentioned. Maybe past experiences, maybe your childhood or your upbringing, or the current situation. So, Dr. Tabeta, I know that one of the symptoms of mental health problems is anger. And how would you explain the relationship between anger and mental problems? Or maybe before you go into that, you just give us maybe a brief explanation on what anger exactly is. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, AC. And anger, that's is a very interesting topic, which is sometimes poorly understood and treated mildly on a very superficial level. But I do believe that it's something which has really wreaked havoc in the lives of many people. You know, the first thing I want to say is anger is a natural emotion. It's a natural emotion.
Yeah.
And it is a healthy emotion. That's an interesting thing. Anger is a natural emotion and it is a healthy emotion. These are the first two things I want to talk about. Yes, natural and healthy. So that implies that when you get angry, I did not say if, I said when implies everybody gets angry.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, not some. There is no human being on earth who does not get angry, because it is a natural emotion and it is healthy.
Yeah.
So it's part of you. Just like breathing air. If you don't breathe air, you will die. Yeah, but if you breathe if you breathe air, you will live. But if you breathe the wrong type of air with the wrong consequence, you won't make it. So same thing with anger. Anger is natural. So this is the first thing I want to stand up, emphasize it over and over again: natural and healthy. And it is a way for human beings to express an emotion. If you walk out there and somebody slaps you or insults you or does something, you're going to be angry because it is healthy. It will help you to brace yourself to the fact and then to think what to do next. But this interesting thing, AC, that anger is there for you to control, because you have the senses, you have the capability, you have the means, you have the attributes, and you have any other thing about you to control that anger. So it is there for you to control. Because if you do not control the anger is going to control you. And
Yeah.
now that is what we have a situation. That's what we have a problem. And the perspective that people have about anger comes from the consequences of it controlling people. Because when anger controls you now, anger becomes a whole different thing.
Mm-hmm.
And some people say mild anger, moderate anger, severe anger. Some will talk about a cycle of anger where you move from one point to irritation to rage. That's what we're talking about. It is that cycle people are focused more on. All right. And that anger is real. So anger should not control us. We should control anger. We have the weapons, we have everything in life. We have the acumen, the capability to control, to subjugate, and to trample over our anger before it can control us and manifest itself and make us do things that we don't have to do. That is just for, a good way of introducing anger.
Okay.
Yes,
So, because they say anger is related to depression, or someone who is angry may just be expressing how he or she feels. Maybe a sign that he is depressed or is anxious about a particular thing. So how does it manifest itself? Remember, we are talking about anger and men. So how does it manifest itself? Because it seems to be manifesting itself differently in men than in women. Did you hear? Did you hear my question?
Are you talking to me? Sorry.
No, to Dr. Apple. Okay. Did you hear? I think it seems to be having a problem. Okay, Wally, over to you. Anger as a natural or as a normal emotion, how does it manifest itself in men? Because I know women, when you are angry, it's very easy for someone to express it verbally, sometimes even physically. What about men? How do they express their anger?
Well, I think both of you've quietly, elaborated the whole issue of anger, which rightly is human in nature. It's got nothing to do if you're a male or a female.
Mm-hmm.
Something that affects each and every one of us when we feel threatened. It's a survival tactic. So if it affects us, our psychological integrity.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be positive and it could be negative. And I think there's a research which was published in the Guardian newspaper last year by Hannah Devlin, and in which she put male and female into one groupings. And what she discovered was that male as well as female, they've got the same level of anger, within them. I'm pretty sure each and every one of us have got our trigger points or things that we are pretty much not happy about. And from that finding, the difference between male and female as such is how we express them,
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to understand the level of which that expression goes out, it comes from a whole range of factors, socioeconomic, political, and even environmental factors.
Mm-hmm.
The whole way in which we, young men, especially us from, Africa and also in the West, we are brought up in a society where you have a lot of a patrimonial kind of society, which places a lot of emphasis on the male.
Yeah.
On the male child. And so if now you see a lot of young people growing up, they have that added pressure of, they're going to be the breadwinners. They're going to be the ones that are going to get married, provide the financial, situations. And so that is a burden on them.
Mm-hmm.
And you have this, you have these ways of life in which you see young men are more exposed to societal factors. And that in itself is a big challenge for them to manage. You see, like, if you want to be successful in life, you always need to go out there. You always need to hustle. You always need to look for financial backup and, in ways in which you can manage your family. And all these things which men are always exposed to puts a lot of pressure on them. And sometimes they feel that if they are not succeeding, they have this low self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
And it always plays a lot in the memory. And going to your question about how this thing works, your body or your system is like a neuron, like an information which flows, and you have to be able to interpret those information very carefully, mentally, especially to the man.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at, in the United Kingdom, for example, the ONS, Office of National Statistics, published the level of suicide and death rates in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And that is pretty much, it explains everything, especially when it comes to men, because there were 6,507 suicides, in 2018. And
Mm-hmm.
out of all those, 3/4 of the deaths were male.
Mm-hmm.
4,903 deaths for male as opposed to just 1,702. So you have a situation which is fairly unbalanced, and that goes with the pressures which men tend to face within the society. And
Mm-hmm.
it also shows, again, if you look at the Lamy report, the MP for Tottenham, he's been doing a lot of fantastic work about black kids and young people within our communities. And if you look at the prison systems as well in the UK, you will see that there were 83,000 prisoners in the UK, and 79,000 of them were mostly male. And if you have that large majority, that tells you the level of exposure. And so there are young people who want to explore, who want to do things, who want to be financially rich, who want to provide for their families, who want to do things and just explore naturally. That is just who we are as men. And in that case, if we are living in a household, and sometimes because we have this thing in our mind, at the back of our mind, that we are the breadwinners and we are the providers, if there is a conflict in there, we always feel threatened, and that comes in the form of anger, which societal factors have just placed on us men. But going back, it is just a case of how we as men manage ourselves. Understanding ourselves is very important, because if you don't understand yourself, it's difficult to understand other people. But it's also, as you've understood yourself, it's good to understand other people. And when you understand other people, that's the way it's going to help you to make informed decisions on how to treat people. And I think that is key for our thriving society.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you so much for that. If I've understood you very well, so one of the things that causes anger is expectation from the society, expectations from family or immediate families, and when you the man are unable to fulfill their expectations, it may manifest itself it may manifest in as anger in you if you are not able to do what they are expecting you to do.
Exactly. And that just, the statistics which I talked about in terms of suicide rates, it tells you everything you need to know, because men want to, they always feel that if they are not doing what they are supposed to do as men, they are a kind of lesser kind of, human being, or they're not respected, or they are not worthy to be men. And so that plays into their imaginations, and that could not be, and that could be a very damaging thing for them as well.
Okay. All right. That's great. And the relationship between anger and mental health, How would you explain that? Because we know sometimes when the anger has been bottled up for too long, it can actually affect your health, including your mental health as well. And you've talked about men committing suicide. So how would you relate this, being anger, mental health, and eventually committing suicide?
No, it is a very, very important and interesting question which you have elaborated. Society is structured in such a way that we are working for a purpose. We have a set dynamics, we have set goals which we want to achieve as individuals.
Yeah.
And in that scenario, because you go to school every day, you want to succeed because you want to become XYZ. And sometimes when you don't achieve what you need to achieve, that could play into your memory. And you rightly pointed out that when things are kept in your memory for quite a very long time, it sticks there and it always tends to resonate. And sometimes it becomes things like envy. You becomes jealous of other colleagues. Oh, my colleague has just got a job, or my friend has just got a job, or my colleague has got a promotion. I don't have enough money. I can't compete. With the exposure which we have, those things keep playing into our minds. We want to succeed. We work hard every day. We hustle. But when we don't achieve some of those things, it can become a problem because every day we live and breathe and sleep to become successful. We live and breathe. We think about everything that is playing around our environment, and that is a very key thing. If you look at politically as well, one of the key things is about poverty. Most people nowadays, especially men, they are trying to combat poverty. And when you are going to work, is because you want to live a better life. You want to get to a certain standard of living. You want to have that comparison. And sometimes it could be negative comparison. It could be negative in such a way that you find yourself in a position of depression. You're feeling depressed. You're looking at it and you're thinking, oh, I don't have money. I'm not rich. I want to live this life, but I can't. How am I going to do it? So all those things play into your memory. And once as it becomes persistent, it kicks in, depression kicks in. From there, your reaction, especially within the people around you, becomes a tricky one. And if you look at the political situation as well, we've just talked about, I've just given a report about the prison rates and the levels. If you get to see like what is happening in the UK with young Black people, police search and all those things, when you have a society where political factors is a key issue, when you have a society where people, you think that you don't feel safe, automatically you go on the defense. And when you go on the defense, it is very easy for you to transmit that form of defense in everything that you do. You go to the workplace, you see your white colleagues, it becomes an environment where you are feeling that you have this discrimination, marginalization, and everything just keeps playing a part. So your whole structure around you becomes tense. And it is very easy when you have that environmental factor, which is linked to the politics of how they are dealing with young people or Black people within these communities. Or when you put all those things together, you see that it is not easy for men. I'm not saying that this is a Black only issue. I'm saying is that what I'm saying is that it is very easy for men to have all this exposure and to feel threatened by what is going on around them, and it's easy for them to transmit it within the family circles or within friends which they have. And so that is a mental health issue when it becomes persistent, and that persistence and depression transmit into how you respond to when people talk to you, and so it affects your mental state.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. And most often, when I don't want to speak for everyone, when I hear someone is angry, the first thing that comes to mind is the person must be angry with another person. Can someone be angry with themselves? Can you be angry with your own self? And how do you?
Well, obviously, you can be angry with yourself because, as I said earlier on, let me take my own example, because I'm somebody who I work hard and I've got things in terms of what I want to achieve in the next year or in the next 2 years or 5 years.
Yeah.
I've got things which I work day in, day out just to achieve. And sometimes when I don't get to achieve what I've planned, it weighs on me and I become a lot more angry. And when I'm in that state, I think it's good to manage myself, manage my expectations, because it's key. And yes, you could be angry with yourself, which it is a positive thing. You talked about being positive and negative in nature. The only downside of the negative side of it is the end effect. So if you are angry with yourself and it doesn't lead or cause harm to anyone around you, I think that is a good thing, because it could be a springboard for you. It could act as a guiding principle for you to want to achieve more, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But if you are frustrated and then you transmit that into anger, then the tendency is the people around you are going to be far more affected sometimes than maybe yourself. And it is not always a good position to always be in.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Tabitha has just come back. So, hi, Doc, welcome back.
Thank you, AC. Sorry, I had some small technical difficulties. Thank you, Valentine, for holding the fort.
It's all right.
I hope you did not get angry with whatever took you away from.
No, it was not anger related. It's a technical issue, and when it happened, I was more disappointed than anger. That's very interesting, AC. I was like, no, this can't happen right now. I was hardly hearing what you were saying or what Valentine was saying, and then it just spiraled from there to I could not even get the images. So I am hopeful that everything is okay now. I have to make sure that everything is okay.
Looks like it's okay. Before you came in, we were just talking about being angry. I don't know if it happens with everyone, because whenever I hear that somebody's angry, the first thing that comes to my mind is this person is angry, must be angry with someone else. So
Right.
I was just discussing with Vali, if you can be angry with your own self, not necessarily with another person.
Yeah.
What about you? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, there is a very strong correlation between anger and love. That's the first thing I'm going to say. Anybody who doesn't love can be angry. You cannot be angry without loving.
Okay.
Yes, and just like there are brain centers in the brain where there's a strong relationship between rage and sex. Rage and sex. And rage is a phase of anger, because anger has different phases. You're starting from mild anger. Some of you can be irritated, but being irritated is not the same thing as rage. It's when it builds up, right? So when the septal nucleus is affected, the nucleus in the brain, which are dealing with sex, it can lead to rage. That has been clinically proven. So I'm trying to make that correlation. It is difficult to be angry when you don't love. So why do people get angry? You can get angry at yourself because you love yourself. That is where the origin of the anger comes from. You love yourself. And then there is some disappointment in there, and then you begin to react with all your senses, and one thing comes to another, you get angry. You can be angry with yourself. But you love yourself, right, AC?
Yeah, of course.
So,
oh my God.
So you love yourself. So you know that you are an intelligent woman. You have an acumen. You have capabilities. You have the high self-esteem. You have the gifts. You have the talent. You have everything necessary to land that job or that opportunity, right? Now, it's not going to come the way you wanted it to come, despite everything you've given him.
Yeah.
Actually, you gave in everything. You put everything on the line to get it. You are loving yourself. You are using your potential. You're using your capabilities. You're using everything that you have. And then it doesn't come through. You really get upset. Right?
Yeah.
Because you love yourself. But if you did not put in anything and you didn't care, you won't really get angry, right? Because it never really mattered to you. Just same thing with love. Love. Can someone be mad at themselves for loving somebody out there? Yes. Because they put in all the love, they put in all the care, they put in all the dedication and everything in. So yes, you can be angry at yourself for not living up to par with your expectations. You can be angry with yourself for not being where you're supposed to be in life, despite everything you've put in. You can be angry at yourself for not being more perceptive, and for one thing or another. Yeah, you can be angry at yourself for falling in love with that. I'm not going to call any names. And why didn't I see that coming? in the first place. And we can be angry ourselves with our own deficiencies in our inability to, you know, to really be discerning of a situation, be discerning of something, and then it just slipped us by, and then the consequences were there for us. The consequences manifested themselves, and we became part of this chaotic atmosphere. Yes, we can be angry at ourselves, just as we can be angry at other people. So there's a strong relationship between love and anger, and anger and love, they go hand in hand. Yes.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much. We're going to narrow it down a little bit. And if you are watching, our topic of discussion today is men and anger, how it affects their mental health and how it affects those around them as well. So when a man is angry, they say an angry man is not a happy man. And obviously, if in the culture, the man is the head of the family, right? And if the head of the family, the papa in the house, is not happy, obviously the rest of the house will not be happy. So if he's angry, how does this anger, or how does his anger affect the person around him, including the spouse, the children, and the rest of the family? How does it affect them?
Yes. That is a very good one. We understand something like the man being the head of the family plays such an important role in the family. He dictates the temperature, the atmosphere, that which is conducive, provides security, emotional security, not just financial security, sets the tone for everything that's going to take place, builds that template with his wife and the children. He's a vital part of the family, oversees things, makes those important decisions. Everybody is counting on this man. Everybody's looking up to this man. This man is a mentor to his children. He's mentoring his wife. He's mentoring his daughter. He's mentoring everybody right there. Society is watching this man, and they define the household by that man, the man's attitude, his behavior, and everything. So that man is such a huge thing to the family. That role he plays is very important because people are looking up to you. You are the one who is, you got married, you got married, you married that woman and give your name to that woman. You give birth to children, and the children have your name. So you are the man. So how you handle things, your temperament, your ability to be cool under pressure is going to translate to something positive, which is going to be beneficial to every member of the family, because a great family operates under a lot of, under the ability that a man can set the tone, which is non-chaotic in the family. Now, when we reverse all of what I just mentioned in the past couple of minutes, we have chaos right there. Where there is pressure, the man cannot handle the pressure. He doesn't know how to relate to the children. He loses his cool when he feels stressed. And it does not just happen immediately. It starts building up gradually. All right. And when that man loses his cool and gets angry, now that is serious, because the first thing I'm going to mention is that everybody is going to notice it, because it's under the glare and under the watchful eye of each member of the family. He's setting the tone. So you begin to emanate that energy that people are not used to. And then something is wrong. And that anger, which he has been used to controlling, because the man has been angry throughout, but he has been controlling the anger, because initially I mentioned to you that anger is a natural and healthy phenomenon. So he has been able to deal with it, to cope with it well. Now the anger is controlling him because of certain external factors, because of certain triggers. And now he cannot handle it anymore. Now we have a problem. We have a situation. We begin to have a disconnect. We begin to have a different type of mindset, which is in the family. It begins to inundate each and everyone. It begins to sit within the narrow crevices of those bonds that unite every family member together. The wife begins to react to it, the children begin to react to it, and it begins to spiral out of control. Now there's chaos. You see, when a man gets angry, it really affects the family in a negative way. The harmony and the peace is not there anymore. That template and the foundation, that communication begin to disintegrate. And mind you, communication is everything, because when communication begins to disintegrate something, because someone who is angry is very poor at communication, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone who is angry is poor at communication, is poor at expression, is poor at trying to relate to other people, what they are going through, because the anger factor took over the emotion and they can't really express themselves the way they normally would, because anger is taking over you. So when anger takes over the man, then something takes over the household, which is also called anger.
Yeah.
He has translated that negative energy to everybody and to everything. Now, there's one thing. I mentioned prior that the man is a mentor.
Yeah.
The mentor. How often he gets angry is going to play a big role in the children's behavior in future when it comes to anger. Because in our last discussion, we talked about men, men tend to act like other men. They tend to see that. All right. So that child, when that child grows up, that child is going to start acting like daddy. Right? Because he's going to start acting the way daddy did. He's going to try to relate to things the way daddy did, because that is what he learned. That is what he saw. So that man was able to handle his anger after a while, but the long-term effect is still there on the children, because the children learned during that period when he was always angry. They learned from that, and now they get angry. So if the man had a son, he's married, and then begins to ask, then wife is going to say, why are you acting that way? Because daddy acted that way 15, 20 years ago. And it just stayed in the subconsciousness. Now, that is for the sons. For the daughters will start looking for that anger in their mates in future. And they start judging their mates based on the fact that daddy used to be angry and used to act that way with their mother. You see, that's where it is. Yeah, so the husband will be like, well, why are you acting this way, honey? I've not done anything. He said, no, I know what you can do. You're always like that. Because that is what daddy and mommy went through. So it is very important that we need this anger in the blood. We take care of it immediately, because number one, it's going to help us to handle things better and be better family leaders in the family for the men.
Yeah.
Also, it could lead to long-term consequences on the children in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is really important. You see, now the man reacts to pressure in a different way. You gotta understand. Men react to pressure through anger and violence. They react to depression, especially depression. Women don't react to depression through anger and anger and violence. Now, I used to say this thing. This is what I like mentioning this a lot. I mention this a lot. When you find a man arguing with a woman in the same house, when you find a man arguing with a woman in the house, now you gotta understand something, because the emotional state of the woman governed by hormones at different times of their life. It is not the woman's fault. It is a physiological makeup. It's a physiological makeup. So regulation of hormones at different stages of her life makes her to express her emotions in a certain way that can come out as the way she is. So they will say the woman is difficult to deal with. You as the man should understand that it is natural now. Now that woman gets upset. She deals with stress in a different way. She can cry more than the man does. The man doesn't cry like the woman. She can get out there and she can scream. She can be in the man's face. That is what a woman does. Now, a man cannot and should not react to stress and pressure like a woman does. Because when a man does that, when a man reacts to pressure, like she comes in your face and begins to scream, what do you think you are? You think I don't know what's going on? And then you talk about, oh, you're talking to me? What do you think you are? Oh, wait a minute. You cannot outmatch a woman in an anger battle. You can't. The man cannot outmatch a woman in an anger battle. You see, the man got those biceps, goes to the gym and everything. He is powerful. He can talk and everything. That is power enough. That woman reacts that way because it is her own way of trying to compensate, because she knows she's stronger. Now, when you come to the sphere and begin to shout and talk like that woman, and because there is this thing called testosterone, which is a very powerful hormone in us, and you want to be the man, the next thing is you're going to want to react. and hit that woman. Now you can't do that. Now in the United States where I am, many men, I've done therapeutic sessions with many men who have been in jail for hitting a woman. Now you hit that woman, you're going to jail. In Africa, it could be different. You hit the woman, for them it's a way of love. My husband beat me. He shows that he loves me. Really? Now, if women think that way in Africa, you got to think twice, because when a man takes his hand out of anger and hits you, that is domestic violence. You call the police, because you are human and he has no right to lay his hands on you, and that's a fact. Now, the angry man hits that woman. Now, this is the interesting part about this behavior. This is what I always say when I train staff on anger management. When at the point where a man hits a woman, talks like her, that man just became a woman. Now you have two men in the house. You had the woman who is a woman, and the man who just became a woman. When a man becomes a woman and reacts to anger like a woman, there's chaos. So at the point where the neighbors heard the shoutings and all the commotion, and they called the police, and the police walked into the house, there are two women in that house. The woman and the man who became a woman. So we should be very careful. What do? Walk away. Walk away from the woman who is in your face, because that is the right thing to do. That is the best thing to do. And come back and discuss later. In an hour or so, baby, what's going on? Just cool down. When the crescendo of anger begins to navigate through a household, and the frequencies are the same level, now there's going to be chaos. There's going to be chaos.
Yeah.
There's going to be chaos. Yeah, and there is no other way about it. So men will react to anger differently from that woman.
Yeah, that's a very good way of looking at it. So when it comes to anger, especially with immediate families or with a partner or spouse, one person has to be calmer. And most often we expect the man to be calm. And from what you have said, Dr. Ako, a man can walk away. Sometimes walking away will also cause another problem. That will also lead to more anger, because she is talking out of anger and you are walking away, then it aggravates. We are going to come back to that. Cham has just come into the studio. Welcome, Mr. Famukum. And we've been waiting for you. Can you unmute yourself?
Hi, good evening. Hello, Dr. Ako. Congratulations on dropping your new single. It was wonderful. Hello, Valentine Zeng. My pleasure. Hi, Clarice.
Hi.
Sorry for joining the show late. I got really caught up. Yeah. And I've been enjoying it though so far, especially the outings of Dr. Ako as usual.
Okay, thank you so much for coming in, even though a little bit late. I do appreciate that. And if you are just joining, guys, we are talking today. Today we are giving a voice to men and anger, its effect on the mental health and those around them. For some reason, I thought I was streaming live on the Sangley Show page. I just discovered that I'm streaming live on my private Facebook account, Asimbeng. However, it's still the same person. So if you're just joining, we are talking about men, anger, its effect on the mental health, and its effect on those around them. So, Cham, being a young man, what experiences do you have with anger? What do you think are some of the causes of men getting angry?
All right, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to, just re-emphasize that when you ask me what are my experiences of anger in men, I want people who are listening out there to know that it is not because anger is a man problem. It's because we are deciding to focus on men's mental health during this series. So if anybody out there has issues or know some things that can cause anger, let them know that it's not peculiar to a particular gender.
Yes.
You know, anger is anger, and anything you do that offends yourself, you should be able to think that anything that offends you, you should be able to think that it has the potential to offend another person.
Mhm.
You know, thank God we have a doctor here, who can talk about the actions and reactions and whatever currents that flow in your vein when you're angry. But we have a general consensus in society that the worst time in your life to make a decision is when you're angry.
Yeah.
And particularly in men, because it is established that a man is more affirmative than a woman. We're speaking on the first series, we established clearly that one of the reasons, which is not the only reason, one of the reasons for higher rate of depression in men and suicide in men is because a man is naturally more affirmative. So it takes a shorter time to take a decision. So if a man decided to kill himself, it takes a shorter time to execute that decision than if a woman decided to kill herself. And that's why women may think more about suicide, but men get to kill themselves or to commit suicide more than men, more than women, because they are more affirmative. Now, that being said, it means that in terms of emotions, men will be more affirmative as well. And this affirmative stance expresses also in situations where they are angry. You know, um, personally, I used to be a very angry person. Let me not say angry person. I used to have a bad anger. Yeah, that's a better way to put it. As a child, you know, but as a child that I was, that was the best time to either correct it or to nurture it, become a violent person. Fortunately or unfortunately, I grew up in a background where there was order, there was hierarchy. So if anger no pass anybody to handle, you know, I have 5 elders who, coupled with my mom, can beat the anger out of you. No matter how you think say you feel vex. Yeah, it's true. You know, and that was a way of handling things. Nowadays we are moving forward, culture is changing, the idea of corporal punishment is being outdated, and we're bringing more non-violent ways of disciplining children, things like a stubborn corner, or what do you call it, something bench where you keep them and all that. But nonetheless, even though these things are available, anger still persists because we are human beings. Every time human beings interact, there is bound to be emotions, flares.
Yeah.
It's just more in men because it's more dangerous for men because men are more affirmative. So sometimes that's a good thing because men can easily make decisions. Sometimes that's not a good thing because when a man gets angry, its consequences are higher. Now, for those who believe that a man who doesn't get angry is not a man, those are the people who are enforcing the negative prejudice and stereotype that a man's strength is in how much he demonstrates his anger. Sometimes this anger is just not found, to be honest, and sometimes this anger is driven by ego. And it's not peculiar to men alone. I keep saying, but because we are talking about men, we have to narrow it down to men in for the context of this conversation. You know, so to me, in my experience, anger is just about somebody striking the wrong tone in your emotions, and it's on you. It's on you to know how to control yourself and to identify those things that you can do that can calm you down, or to identify those behavior patterns that you can follow to calm you down in order that you don't react. Because 95% or 99%, should we say, of any decision you make out of anger will be the wrong decision.
Mhm.
So, and you cannot stop the world from getting you annoyed. Sometimes you get annoyed at how somebody eats. It's life. It happens. You know, when you don't like somebody, or when the situation is not just for you, you get angry. You get angry any day, anytime, for any reason. But it only becomes a problem when you are unable to master your emotions and to know that anger is not a reason to take negative action. You know, you can decide to, like Dr. Ako said, walk away when you feel angry. You can decide to, if you love music, sing when you feel angry. You can decide to count 1 to 10 before you do anything. You get into a place, you are offended before you say a word. The probability of you saying something that would damage the situation further is high. So maybe count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 in your mind, and then you give a response. You are more likely to give a more sound and justified response than
Yeah.
when you burst out.
Mm.
You know, yes. So to me, my experience has really been that anger is part and parcel of life. It comes as a result of our interactions with human beings, because humans are humans. That is why some people prefer pets, you know, because only you can express your anger towards the pet. It's very difficult sometimes to see the pet express anger towards you. If the pet does that, you take it to the vet. There's something wrong with the pet, you know, and that's the hypocrisy of mankind. But that's where the world we have come to live in.
Yeah.
So anger is normal. We just need to work on the way we handle that emotion of ours, really.
All right. Thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for emphasizing that our discussion on this episode, it's a 4-part series on men's health. So when we are talking about men and anger, it doesn't mean that we are looking only at men being angry. Everyone gets angry. Be you a man, a woman, or a child, we all get angry. But for our discussion, we are looking into men's problem, men's health, and anger is actually one of them. Anger in itself, it most often sounds more like a negative thing. So, Vali, is anger really a problem?
It depends on the person.
Mm-hmm.
As an individual, if you think that anger leads you to cause trouble, then it is a problem.
Yeah.
It depends on the recipients or the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important, based on everything that everybody has said, that the greatest issue is the power to be self-controlled. That is really key, and to be able to train your mind and direct your energy that is focused exactly to where you want it to be, and what you want it to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, one of the key ways in which you can manage yourself is, I know you talked about it, you touched this immediately as Dr. Ako finished, about being detached or moving away. This is a very good tactics. The fact that you move away doesn't mean that you are, some people, especially men, think that they are weak. It is not by being weak. It is by being understanding that, moving out is, at the time, it solves a lot of problems. So we have to understand that the mind plays a lot into us in our actions. We have to train our minds. We have to educate ourselves. There are lots and lots of fantastic videos out there. You can read a book, because one of the key things which I do is I spend a lot of time reading books, and that helps me to understand a lot about the environment, a lot about what is going on around me, and that shapes me in the way I manage my affairs, both internally and externally. And going back to the points which Dr. Ako made mention of, it is a tricky situation. Sometimes I've seen a lot of men who feel comfortable when they are away from home than at home. So the problem might this is tricky. This is tricky because the problem might not be coming externally, but might be internally. And how do you manage that? And he talked again on a very important point, which has to do with communication. Communication, it is very important. You can't believe the walls that communication can break. And in some instances, trust me, it is difficult even for communication to take hold, especially when people have got different mindsets, different standpoints about a particular situation. Everybody's like, okay, I'm firm. This is my position. I'm not going to waver from that position. And this is how it's going to be. In certain instances of that nature, I think it's always good to seek expert advice. You've got all these GPs, you've got all these professionals out there who look at family situations and help families accordingly. And I think they will play an important role in helping families and individuals. And I think, at the start of the show, you talked about men, us. It is difficult for us to even go to the hospital to find out, to do a test, to check if we are sick of this or that. And not to talk of anger. To some men, it is not even an issue because it is part of them. And when you have anger, which has built in you for a very long time, I think it's important that you go to the hospital, speak to a friend. If something is bothering you, breathe. They always say when you're breathing, don't breathe from your chest. Breathe from your lower back and get as much fresh air as possible. So all are some of the tactics. We'll always be angry at some point, and it's how we manage it. And that goes to the individual, yourself. So it doesn't matter if your children are not happy about something. It doesn't matter if your wife is not happy about something. It depends on how you as an individual manages yourself. And it is, as Dr. pointed out, as a man, you should be able to control yourself, because by doing that, you control everyone that is around you. And my dad was a very, very good person in doing that. And one of the things, and people, I don't want to sound religious, but praying is a very important aspect. If you pray and you say, oh, this is all my troubles that I'm facing in the world, God, please help me. Help me to deal with this situation or that situation. It goes a long way. And I think it's one of those things where people like myself and other men have to start learning.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much. So you've already touched some of the techniques, some of the coping mechanisms of controlling our anger, or some of the things that you men can do to control the anger before it escalates. And you've also mentioned that it is very necessary to communicate. Unfortunately, anger affects our communication, because anything that comes out of your mouth or comes out of you is anger, because you are already bubbling in there. So it actually prevents you from actually saying something or saying anything in a gentle manner or in a subtle manner. And also self-control, as you've said, is one of the techniques that we can do, or maybe taking a break, just walking out, going out. I mean, taking yourself out of that situation that's making you angry. So, Dr. Ako, I'm tempted to come to you most often when I want to talk about mental health, about mental problems. So we are looking at anger and its effect on our mental health, and the effect it has on the people around us. It may be family members or our friends. Why does a mental disorder involve anger? If I may ask, why are people with a mental illness angry? Hold on.
It's actually, anger. Thank you, AC, for that. Before I answer, Cham, you're welcome back to the. I mean, I didn't see Cham, like where Cham go to. You know, I just dropped Kolofata, and I can't find Cham. Did he go to party on Kolofata and he's not here? It's good to have you, Cham and Valentine. Your points really. I mean, this is really deep. This conversation on anger. Before I go into that, AC, I want to talk about certain phases of anger. For the purpose of this discussion,
Yeah.
you see, anger needs a trigger. You know, that's a triggering phase. It needs a trigger. Because it is through this phase of anger that we can talk about that the mental health correlation and the relationship. I'm going to give a simple example. They say, and something we can all relate to. You say a hungry man is an angry man. Is that true? Cham, is that true? Yeah, Valentine, yes. A hungry man, I'm just telling you, a hungry man is an angry man. Yes. Good. Those who mentioned that are very wise people. Yeah, because when I say hungry, I don't mean you had some snacks and stuff. I mean, when you left the house, the typical African way, like me, you leave the house in the morning and you worked round the clock and then you finish on work, you don't have time to break, to eat anything, and you come home, you want to eat your fufu and everything, right? Your mind has been on that, and you're going to eat your final, and then when you come home, fufu is not there, and you are very hungry. Now you're an angry man. That is a trigger. I'm using that as an example. That is a trigger. Now, at that point, you are not happy. If that fufu is there and something can happen, right? You'll be fine. You can chill or you can just grumble. If it's not there, and then one or two other things happen, for example, somebody comes and talks about the bills. At that point, you have not eaten all day. You are preparing to move to the next cycle of anger, which is escalation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at that escalation, your blood pressure begins to rise. Your heart rate begins to rise. You begin to breathe differently. Your mental functions begin to move from the normal mental, because there's something about anger can throw you into something that you were never prepared for in the matter of 10 minutes. A normal acting and normal functioning person, suddenly in 10 minutes, the whole place. Somebody will say, I just left the house, 10 minutes to get everything was fine. What's going on now? So I'm just using food as an example, all right? And we're talking about anger in men. As Cham rightfully said, we have not decided to beat up the men, and say this is a man thing. It's not a man thing. It is something that we're just talking about anger in men. So it has escalated because there was a trigger. From the trigger phase to the escalation phase, it moves now to, if it is not controlled there, nothing is done, to the crisis phase. And the crisis phase is where we say all hell broke loose. In the crisis phase, the man does not think rationally. That's where it happens. What happens in the crisis phase is, because normally what you do is you have to think before you talk, right?
Yeah.
Now in the crisis phase, you start talking before you think. There's a reversal right there. And that is why most of the craziest, stupid, horrible experiences and things, the hitting the woman and all that stuff, it happens at that crescendo, at the crisis phase of anger. It has escalated, and now it's beyond escalation. It's at the crisis phase where you can't think anymore. But you are talking. You're talking. You are saying words which you should not have said. And those words which have been hurtful, which have been harmful, which have broken marriages, which have jeopardized the interest of relationships, which have landed men in jail, all those things happen at the crisis stage of anger. And the next phase I'm going to talk is, of course, if we have reached a crescendo, you must start going down, right? Because I talk the mountain. We're now talking about what? The recovery phase.
Yeah.
Where you start thinking a little bit, you start chilling, you start thinking more, you're not as hyped as before. And finally we get to the depression phase. The depression phase is the phase where you begin to recover your mental functions, where the blood pressure drops below normal, the heart rate drops below normal. That is those are the phases of anger. I mentioned those phases. I talked about vital signs. Now you begin to discover that there are people who had a stroke when they were angry. Have you heard about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a stroke because they were at the crisis stage where the blood pressure spiked up. So it's not just about the mental health. It's about the general well-being. Anger is not good for health. Anger is dangerous to health. It can spike up a pre-existing condition. There's a correlation between diabetes mellitus, between diabetes and hypertension. It's a spectrum. So a diabetic patient can just have a heart attack because things went out of control because of anger. So anger is dangerous to health. Now, the mental health suffers a lot because angry people have different phases of anxiety disorders that they have to handle. I mentioned before that anxiety disorder is a wide spectrum. It is not just being worried or being anxious. We're talking about anxiety disorders like phobia, like panic attacks, like post-traumatic stress disorder, adjustment disorders, like generalized anxiety disorder, like obsessive compulsive disorder. So you have all those things which are anxiety disorders. And then people become depressed because as I mentioned before, men manifest depression through anger and violence. Women do not do that. You see a man who is out there, he's really angry. There's something that's not going right in his life. And we bottle up these things. We bottle them up. We don't talk. We are macho. Hey, what's up? How you doing, Akko? I'm good. How are you? Hey, Ted, what's going on, man? Everything is good. You show everything's good in the family? Yes, everything's good in the family. Ted has not paid his mortgage for 5 months. He's thinking about that kid notice coming, and then he cannot put stuff together. He's not going to tell that everything is not good.
Yeah.
But Ted's wife, Sophie, how you doing? Sophie look at you. Everything is good. We're managing it. And then she breaks down crying. That is a woman. She can't handle it. She can't handle it, and she can't put up that facade which a man can put out because that is a woman. And then she begins to weep, she begins to cry, and she needs a hug, and she's going to feel better. Man is not going to do that. That man is going to bottle it up and keep bottling it up until you have these huge atomic bomb, because you have all these molecules which are all about the atoms. There's entropy right there. A degree of maximum disorder. And then the day he explodes, boom. Devastating. Yes, anger can really affect the way we think. It can affect the way we behave. It has something to do with our cognition, with the way we interpret things, the way we deal with other humans. It can affect our emotional quotient and our social quotient. It affects our emotional capital and our social capital. Anger does that. Because we don't react that way. Especially people cannot control their anger. Whose anger controls them? Have you seen a meeting where an angry person is in a meeting? In fact, there's something about anger. When people know that you get angry easily, they can use it against you. You know that? They can put you in a position where you get angry, and that has been done. And that is why some people have lost their jobs in great companies. They were very competent. They excelled in what they did. But there was somebody in that company who knew a secret about one of those workers that gets angry easily. So by the time you get to a meeting, they're going to put together one or two things to make sure that you get angry and you react. And once they say, "Oh, you see what we're talking about?" and you have a track record of being angry, is a professional, they let you go. Anger is dangerous. It's dangerous to the mental health, to the physical, because when you get to that crisis phase of anger, you do not think anymore. And that's the fact. It's not about how rich you are or how intelligent you are. You have lost your cool. You lost your cool. A man who lost his cool is a man who is moving towards something dangerous, who is moving to a dangerous place. It's a man who is going to jail. Because I have many folks in jail who were affected by, who got to that crisis phase and slapped a woman, and it was over. Now you see, it's not about the fact that you were the reason for the argument, that it was because you did something to. It's about the fact that you reacted to it. How you react to things matter. And let me tell you, in the legal system in the United States of America, a woman is very powerful, especially a black woman or a Hispanic woman. They are powerful. In a court of law, when the judge hears that woman crying in a court of law, and she's like, I was trying to make some food right there, and he just walked into the house And I was carrying the baby, and I was so tired, and I tried to express myself, and he just slapped me. Oh, nobody's going to bail you out. You're done. Once you can cry that way in court, the judge, you are not going to say, maybe you were working so hard, you were tired, you have paid the mortgage, you have done everything the right way. You are a hard-working man. We talk about men and anger. You are a hard-working man. You provide for your family. And everybody's talking about you are such a great person, but you had a deficiency, and that is anger. And you could not control it, you could not handle it, you didn't know how to go about it, and that was the undoing. Because when he came home, he could not control it and manifested the rage. And that crisis faced. And it was a slap, and the man's life started spiraling at that point. Everything was well, everything was fine. All it took was 2 to 5 minutes of being out of control. Anger in men is a very important thing. It can make you lose your credibility. It can make you lose your respect. It can make you lose your freedom. It can make you lose your life. Because people who are angry confronted others in the streets and are 6 feet deep. I'm sorry to say that. It has happened before. So it affects your mental state in such a way that you do not take advantage of your naturally endowed mental faculties. Reasoning, focus, concentration. A man in the crisis phase of anger does not reason, is not focused, does not concentrate on what he needs to do, is not a leader of the family. And it was just brief 2 to 5 seconds. And everything, you take so much time building something, and then something shows up called anger, makes you lose everything you've built. So the man being the leader of that family should be able to handle that. If it is a weakness, and I understand women are under a lot of pressure, and that's a fact. We cannot downplay the pressure that men go through in society. Just like the woman. I'm not going to say the woman doesn't go under pressure, because somebody's going to come and say, what about us? We give birth to the baby, we take care of the baby, we work and take care of babies, we work in a business, and everybody has that pressure. But the man is the head of the family, and that is a position of pressure on his own. And he sets the tone, and he sets things going. Yes, we can do something. Let us handle our anger. Let us take control of our mental faculties. Let us take control of anger before anger takes control of us. And before I wrap up on this, I want to say that anger has been found also to be like a symptom in mental disorders. Yes, some people abuse substances, for example. Men who abuse substances are prone to anger. Because neurotransmitters can trigger an abnormal reaction in the brain because of neurotransmitter imbalances. Abusing LSD, K2, PCP, men abusing cocaine and all that stuff, methadone, they are prone to anger. Yes, we have to watch that. The conditions which are prone to anger. All right. And then somebody who has this like schizophrenia, which is a psychosis, can be prone to anger. Because he has delusions, he has illusion, he has all these positive and negative symptoms of schizophrenia, and he may not know how to handle it. So it's good to seek medical attention, to seek therapy. You go for therapy, take medication, is going to help in that area. People abuse alcohol, who have their senses blurred, are susceptible to anger. It affects your mental status, affects the way you think. So there's this road rage when you're driving and you're drunk. So that's why you just drive the way you can, because you don't have. So the potential for you to move from the trigger phase. So somebody is blowing his horn, is on the street driving, and just the horn, you get angry quickly because you moved quickly from the trigger phase through the escalation phase, the crisis stage. And with this road rage, you go to slam into the vehicle because you were under an influence. So there are many factors, environmental, as Valentine mentioned before, environmental and other factors, and some things we are going through as well, which will affect our mental faculties. And cause that anger.
Thank you so much. And that one of the things you said actually leads me to a quote by Nicola Adams, which says, anger is an unnecessary emotion. Lots of stuff in life can trigger anger, but what matters is how we react to anger. it's advisable that we all should choose not to react to anger. So we've been live for about 1 hour 19 minutes or 1 hour 20 minutes, and we will be rounding up very soon. But I would like each and every one of you to let's look into. I know, Vali, you had already mentioned some of the strategies we could use to minimize the effects of anger. What can we do exactly to prevent the anger in the first place? It's a natural emotion. We all get angry, but what is it that we can do? Doctor mentioned one of the triggers is hunger. So if I know that a hungry man is an angry man, and so at the back of my mind, I should always know that by the time he's coming to work, his food should be ready. Will that be one of the ways of minimizing the anger? Vali, over to you.
Yes, okay. Yeah, right. The one of the most important things which we can, as individuals, as men, we can do in order to manage our anger is, first of all, in believing in ourselves. This whole issue of self-esteem, you know, you don't have to, you have to build this positiveness in you, because when you breathe positivity, that is how it extends to other parties around you. You have to have that positive state of mind, even in the face of challenges. That is the key thing. Education, training is very important, because when you've got a lot of knowledge in, you know, things that are happening around you, your environment, it gives you a good way of managing various situations. I think Doctor mentioned something about the heart rate, how the heart reacts. You remember, if you are tense, or if there's anything that happens to you, the very first thing that you start seeing in yourself is your heart rate. Your heartbeat goes up automatically. When you're fighting or if something is happening, it's your heart rate. And in my own little experience, I've been reading, you know, and listening to videos from people like Jay Shetty and all the like, and how you can control, you can manage your heartbeat, you can control those things, how things affect you to a greater extent, you know, and how that works in real essence is how you can have this mental balance in a mental state. Mentally, you have to be upright. And we've talked about this issue of communication. We've talked about ways in which you can relax. I know I'm a football fan, and one of the things in which I do is on a Saturday or on a Sunday, I go and I watch my team. Look for activities that get you excited. I think that is important. If you think that you know, is walking the dog or doing some other activities or traveling or doing things which makes you happy, you have to be able to concentrate on those things. Because if you don't, and you just allow the pressures of life to get to you, that leads to depression. That is what doctor is trying to, or doctor has been explaining as some of those factors that can lead to depression. So look for the things that make you happy. If you like watching music or documentaries or anything that distracts your mind, that takes your mind off those things, I think it is really, really helpful. And so I know the NHS has got a lot of apps online which people can always access. If you access them, you will learn a lot of how you can manage your mental health. You can, you know, manage yourself as an individual. And one point just before I let go is, I think doctor talked about depression and violence. The whole issue of depression and violence is human in nature, and they have, you know, it's not something which is gender related. I think we've talked about this at the start. And you have women, you know, some women out there who are violent. And we talked about this exposure at the start of it, where you had where young people or men were being allowed and women were being protected. When you have that dynamics going on now, many more women are being exposed. And if you look at the statistics, even those who go to the prison, the level at which violence in women is going up, as well as men, the poverty situation, the socioeconomic situation, everything is just driving the scale of violence, the scale of anger at the top of the roof. So you have to be able to understand. We talked about overcome ego, overcome envy, overcome jealousy, overcome negative competition, keeping a positive state of mind. Don't overset goals and expectations.
Yeah.
That is very important, because sometimes you might set a goal that this is what I want to achieve, this is where I want to be in the next X, Y years. And if you don't get to that position, it leads to frustration. So just take every day as it comes. Um, get a nice walk, have a chat with friends, set the tone for the family. And I think with that positive state, do everything possible in your power to make sure that you self is happy. Because if you're not, then everything around you just goes down the drain. And so again, I talked about activities which people can engage in. Look at yourself. What makes you happy? Don't only look at the sad thing. What makes you happy? What things you can engage in? Register yourself in the gym. A lot of men go to the gym, exercise, do a lot of pumping. All those activities are helpful, So I think it's key that we look at some of those activities and try to develop and build ourselves and self-esteem, and know that we, despite all the pressures which we face, we can always overcome. And the men are the examples for everybody to follow. And I think it is important that we set that example.
Thank you so much, Wally. Cham, over to you. Do you have any coping mechanisms that we could use, a men could use to control their anger, and which will eventually help those around them and also help their mental health?
Yeah, thank you. Doctor and Valentine have touched on some very important issues there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just concerned about how we present our solutions. That we don't increase the pressure on men generally, which will increase the incidence of angry reactions. So when doctor speaks and talks about, I wrote a couple of things down. He said a man cannot and should not react like a woman. It's what like react to anger like a woman. And then he said you cannot outsmart a woman in an anger battle. It just reminds me of this prejudice, this mindset. We call it here in the UK the big girl's blouse mindset, where a man is a man, and we have to at some point do away with this expendability. We talked about it in our third series, in our first series, I think. This expendability, we have to really find a way to do away with it. That's why it was important for me to begin by saying that anger was a human issue, not a man issue. Doctor also created a link between anger and love. I'll call it passion. Most very passionate people have a tendency to be very angry especially about the things they're passionate about, and these can be weaponized as well. Let's look at contemporary society. There are people who are passionate about family, about jobs, about careers, about things. When you realize that somebody is too passionate about something, it's easy to tweak, to touch that button that hits them off. And like doctor says, you begin to find yourself in a position where you are exploited. Everybody knows that, okay, this one day so nothing handles more pressure, and then twerk you there, and you explode. This we have to find a way also in society to see how we can. Why not make it part of the guiding principles in building up contemporary laws, that it should be an offense to exploit somebody's deficiency in that kind of way. And then the relationship between anger and domestic violence, um, in development, it's a bit complicated. It's not exactly a problem of anger. It's sometimes, and most times, it's a problem of culture than of anger, because we have people who are violent, domestic, who practice a lot of domestic violence, who are not necessarily angry, who are doing it because this is the norm. They grow up in a society that says that this is how you handle a man, this is how you handle a woman. So a domestic, okay, I'll give you a simple example. Something like the rate of domestic violence, the rate of male victims in domestic violence, which is very high. Many people don't know, but it's really high. The simple example I want to give is, if your son and your daughter in Africa do something wrong, who are you more likely to beat? It is clear in the statistics that a male child is more likely to receive 2 times the punishment a female child is likely to receive for the same crime. And I'm talking about corporal punishment here, not just any kind of punishment. So you see that even the issue of violence and anger, we have to be a little bit cautious when we approach it, because even though it's true that men express their anger by violence, but beyond that, sometimes anger is always that spark, that matchbox in the fuel station that causes the explosion. There are always some underlying issues which you have to handle, because if you handle only the anger and you don't take away those issues, there is still a tendency to explode at some point. And then lastly, we talk. The conversation has been also brought about, and it has been conducted in a way that we kind of ignore social status as one of the underlying issues that can spark aggressive action and anger. Things like frustration, which doctor mentioned, which can come from poverty, which can come from riches as well. So anger is not peculiar to a particular set of people, because you see that there are some people who, like he said, a hungry man, who will be angry because of their passion for whatever they are doing, their passion to change their story, their passion for things to work, and things are not working. And so they get angry, and they can likely demonstrate this. But there are also men who, because they have reached a particular status in life, they become arrogant and angry, because they feel like, okay, anytime you express yourself or you disagree with them, you are not giving them enough recognition or enough respect as they think that they deserve. And this happens amongst men, this happens amongst women. In fact, the amount of violence that men made on other men is way more than the violence men made on other women. Look at our growing up in Takatie. When you go to play football, there is no day I've ever gone to the field and there's not a fight. Somebody has to trash somebody to prove a point. So we have to understand. We have to understand too that there is a difference between agreement and understanding, and this is very important in order to cope with our anger. Agreement and understanding, there is a very big difference. The first thing is that you don't have to agree in order to understand. You don't have to agree with somebody in order to understand. You can understand what somebody is trying to say. You can see from their perspective. It doesn't mean that you agree. So, but most of the times, when people speak to each other, they expect each other to agree immediately. And when you don't agree, it sparks that anger. Or you think that they are speaking to you because they want you to agree. And when you feel like that, the anger comes up. But no, you can understand somebody without necessarily agreeing. And when you understand somebody, like Valentine said, you get out there, try to get more information, try to know what the situation is. It guides your proaction, your proactiveness towards whatever the situation is. Because if I understand that Valentine has a problem, and this is where his problem lies, and this is what he's trying to say about this problem. My reaction towards when he says offensive things will be different, not because I agree with the offensive things he has said, but because I have been able to seek knowledge around what I should expect with people who have this kind of peculiar problem. And when I seek this knowledge, it's easier for me to deal with Valentine, to be more tolerant with Valentine. That's just an example. Valentine is a very nice person. He doesn't have any issues. Yeah, but really, we have to learn to understand people, and it's important that we have to learn to understand people. It doesn't mean that we agree with them. It doesn't mean that we have succumbed to them. It simply means that we see that they are human beings, and we see that they are in pain, and we see that why whatever they are feeling is coming their way. It helps us to be more proactive and to reduce the tension in the air. That's what I'll say. Apart from that, they have already mentioned all the other coping strategies: go to the gym, sing a song, watch a movie, and all these things which they have mentioned. But I think that we have to dwell more on understanding each other, because the more modernization comes, the lesser people have contact with other human beings, and the lesser we understand each other. We understand smartphones nowadays more than we understand our relatives, and it's dangerous. We deal with animals nowadays more than we deal with human beings. We deal with our technology nowadays more than we deal with human beings. And because we are moving far and far away from each other, there is bound to be tension. My mom used to tell me, when you're talking with your brother and you start shouting, know that in the spirit, you have already started moving away from the person. So you can't hear the person. That's why you're raising your voice. You see, so we have to be in contact and to understand each other in order to be able to manage our anger better.
Thank you so much, Cham. That's very elaborate. I'm so happy for that. And we're just about to round up. And Doug, do you have any final words? Then I'll give like a few more minutes for Cham and Valentine to round up. So Doug, over to you for final word.
Yes. So interesting topic, very interesting topic, AC. Thank you for making us to focus on anger, and thank you, Cham and Valentine, for taking time to really elaborate on specificities as far as anger is concerned. We should understand we live in a society where we meet people, we interact with people, we're social beings. So and then you're always going to meet somebody. You're going to deal with somebody. You're going to deal with circumstances. We're going to deal with stuff even within us that has been planned for a long time. It's important that I always mention that social quotient and emotional quotient. We always beef that up and work on it. Work on those things is going to help us handle anger very well on the long run. And when I'm talking about emotional quotient, is everything that defines it, or a social quotient, and everything that defines it. And when it comes to men, men, we've talked about anger and men, and of course, women get angry. Everybody gets angry. But it's how we relate to it, it's how we approach it, it's what we do about it. Those stages of anger, very important. Giving people the space that they need, lowering our voice when we're discussing something, consciously. I'm not just lowering, but consciously doing those things. Consciously lowering our voice, consciously giving somebody space, consciously hearing somebody out when they want to express their opinion. That consciously hearing them through what they have to say. Important things that we can do. And we've talked about triggers. We've talked about, how to cope with anger. We've talked about the traits, characteristics of people with anger. We've talked about symptoms and signs in people with anger. I believe that we've covered quite some very interesting, and topics when it comes to anger. So I just want to say that I hope that we'll be able to, through this conversation, through this program and Sunday show, we'll be able to come back to this and listen to Cham and Valentine and everything that I've said here today. And I believe that it can help us. You never know when it's going to help you. It can help me because I'm not exempted. As we mentioned before, your life can be going on well. It can take 5 minutes to ruin it. And how do you react is very important. The last thing I want to say is anger is a natural and healthy emotion. Control it. Do not let it control you. And the issues start when it controls you. I want you to have a great day. And thank you, AC.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Anger is a natural emotion. It affects everyone, whether you are a man or a woman. We have to learn how to control it. Vali, final words, please, before we round up.
Well, let me go back by thanking you for this brilliant topic. I think I've learned a lot, and that is the essence of it. I think sometimes it's not about the points or the ideas which we've got as individuals. It is you have to keep your mind in such a way that you're constantly learning every day. And thank you so much, my brother, Dr. Ako, and Cham as well, for your grateful insights. I think it's really, really useful for me and also for the audience which they are there watching now. One of the most important things which I always think about issues of anger is about yourself. People are always going to perceive you for whatever it is. It is a right or wrong situation. It is ethical by nature. Um, I think it's always important that you understand yourself, because when you do understand yourself, you can easily relate to other people as well. And it's not only about understanding yourself, it's also understanding other people. But you know, now that we have a lot of difficulties going on with the coronavirus pandemic, with financial issues, incomes have been stretched. People are thinking about what they're going to do to put food on the table. All those things are some of the things that plays. I know that plays in a lot of men's brain. I don't want to only say men, but women as well. Think about how they're going to manage it. You've got childcare responsibilities. You've got all sorts going on now. And so sometimes you might, respond to someone in a way which you don't necessarily mean to respond. And people always, if you understand someone, it is always easy to relate with that person, and always try to know that. And the only way you can do it is basically by communicating with the person, finding out. I know we've had a lot of sessions at the job site at my work, NHS England, and they want to know about what are the things that the difficulties that people are going through. So when you're having conversations, when you're talking about things, it is also a therapy. When you have a problem, get on the table, pick up a phone, call a friend, chat about it. Solutions will obviously come out of it. I'm pretty sure. Apart from the experts which are out there, the environment is what it is. Coronavirus is taking its toll. People are stressed to the brim. But it goes back to my original point. It has to do with yourself, because the effects of your actions or your inactions, because remember, action is two-way. It's your actions or inaction. Sometimes you do something, it goes against you. Sometimes you don't do something, it still goes against you. So you need to have a balance. You need to understand where you need to act and where you don't need to act. Sometimes the best solution is just to stay you quiet, go out there, go to a pub, get a pint, and just wash it off. Sometimes you have to be diplomatic the way you confront things. So again, for you to understand that pattern is to understand who the situation is with, because people are different. There is no one size fit all. Trust me. If you come up with your solution now, it might not work in my household. If you come up with a solution which works for you, it might not work in Cham's household. So you have to look at which solution works in your specific household, and that goes with understanding. There has to be a lot of tolerance. You have to be able to tolerate people. Forgiveness is key, because we keep talking about this. If you don't always let go of things that have happened to you, you keep it in your mind and you keep pouncing on it day in, day out, that automatically sets the tone for you to act in a certain way. So forgiveness, we have to learn how to forgive each other. I think it's really important to love one another. Love doesn't necessarily mean you, well, it says in the Bible that treat other people as you want to be treated. When you understand that, you always ask yourself, how does this person feel when I talk to them in this way? So in that sense, you start to understand. Some people are generally, is their pattern, they talk in a loud tone. A loud tone of voice is not necessarily aggressive in nature. A loud tone of voice doesn't necessarily mean that you're angry. It's just how you are as an individual. So people need to start understand. Look for time. Meet your friend. Meet your partner. Ask them, how are you today? How are you feeling? How was your day? All those little things makes a massive difference in people's life. Just good morning. When you get up, you see your neighbor. You say, good morning. How are you today? How did you sleep? All those little things which people think or underestimate makes a massive difference in people's lives. There are a lot of people in this country who are isolated, who don't even have people to talk to. You know, so I think in a society we need to be each other's keeper. We need to learn to love each other. We need to forgive. We need to pray for each other as well. So the Sangi show, and Clarice, I thank you so much for everything you've done. And lastly, just to say the brilliant thing which you've done in Cameroon, I saw it and it was really good for the lives of all those you've touched. And I just want to say you should have the strength to continue doing more. And the lovely people around you, myself and Cho and Cham, or Aqua and Cham is going to be there to help you whenever, and all your beautiful friends which you've made. And I know you are such a wonderful lady, and just keep up with the hard work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate that. And when we host a show like this one, we also learn. So as the topic of anger and men, I've actually seen a few comments on Facebook, and people are already debating that this is rubbish. This is why do they keep bashing men, these men that. Just to emphasize again, as Cham said in the beginning, we are talking about men and anger because it's a 4-part series. This is the 3rd episode. We are into it, and we've been looking at men's health, and we've been focusing on the mind, the body, and the soul. And men and anger is just part of the topics we've been looking at as far as men is concerned. It's not because we think only men get angry. No, it's centered around our topics. And thank you so much, Vali. As you've said, we have to learn how to forgive. We have to learn how to understand our own selves, learn how to understand others as well. And forgiving as well minimizes the effect of being able to bottle up so many things. And we should also pray. I mean, it's really a learning process for each and every one of us. And I'll come to you, Cham, for your final word, then I'll round up the show.
All right. Thank you very much, Clarice, and congratulations as well for the work you're doing back in Cameroon. You're touching many lives, and more grace to your efforts.
Thank you.
My last words are going to be very brief. Simple. Dear men, you are not alone. Whatever it is that you're facing, you're not alone. Stay calm and stay safe in this, in quotes, women's world that we live in. Yeah, it's true, because the probability for a man to win a case in court over a woman, especially in civil issues now, it's almost like colonizing Europe. So dear men, stay safe. You are not alone. Keep in touch. Secondly, I want to say I am sorry. We have said here that anger is a natural thing. So when you find out that moment after, and it always happens after you don't mess up, there's always that moment that you are like, hey, what did I do? Say I am sorry. Apologize. It's not a sign of weakness. It simply means that you understand you have hurt somebody and you want to make a difference. There are 3 parts of an apology my mom used to tell me. Number 1, you say it. Verbal acknowledgement. I am sorry. Number 2, you promise that you will not do it again. And then number 3, you find out how you can make up for for the damage you've caused. So, dear men, say I am sorry. Apologize. It is going to heal both you and the person who your anger may have hurt. Whether they are deserving of it or not, we should apologize. And my last word is going to be to society. Should we allow one moment of anger to define how we see people for a lifetime? Let's look at patterns. There are men whose lives have been destroyed today because of one slap that happened in one slight second. No history of violence, no history of misbehavior. They have lived up to their standard as men, as dads, as uncles, as parents, as sons. But that one slight moment and their lives are shattered. Should we use that one slight moment, to define how we see people? Should we ignore the 99% value, worth, good in men and focus on that one little thing that they did? Now, I'm not into the justice system, but I know that you can establish patterns. I think it's time for us to review how we approach this punishment of a thing. When something is systematic, I understand. But when it's a one-off, are there no considerations we could make? Are there not, instead of go to prison, go to rehabilitation? It is time for society to start thinking around this. Because majority of the victims of these stringent laws are men. And because we fall victim, those outside get more and more angry. So that's just my word. We should reconsider how we approach issues of men's deficiencies in society.
Thank you so much, Chan. And that takes us to the end of our show, the Sangi Show. We've been talking about men and anger. There are quite a few issues, a few points raised, which it gives us the room, men, women, and even children, to ponder, to think about as far as anger is concerned. Anger affects everyone, whether you are a woman, a man, or a child. We all get angry at some point in our lives. What matters is how we react towards that anger. And as Cham said, it's good to say sorry. It's good to promise that you won't do whatever thing you did as a result of anger, and it's also good to make amends. I will add to it that when they say sorry, we have to listen, and we also have to accept their apologies. And anger becomes very limiting, and it's also restricting. We can't see through anything when we are angry. So we look at the anger while it is there, but after a while, we have to look at something else. So which means we can't let anger stay within us for too long, because from what we have heard in our discussion, it has long-term effects, including mental health problems or other medical conditions, or it can actually aggravate existing medical conditions. So whoever has watched this program today, you will agree with me that you've learned something, and you are going to go back home today and make a change in your life in one way or the other. Anger has broken homes. Anger has separated families. Shall we allow this anger to keep on going on in families or between friends? Or shall we actually look at what the cause of the anger is, or what the cause of the anger was? Shall we also look at the triggers? If you know you are someone who easily gets angry, it's also advisable to look at some of the things that trigger your anger. And I also know that isolating yourself for a long time can also be a trigger, because when you are in that little corner, in that little place alone, you have all those thoughts going on and on in your mind. So I would like to plead on each and every one of us to reconsider whoever or whatever that is making you angry. Anger affects everyone, man, woman, child. Stay blessed, everyone. Stay tuned. It's AC from the Sangley Show, and we just gave a voice to men and anger, and we also looked at the effects on their mental health and the effect of this anger on people around them. We hope to see you again next week for the 4th episode of the 4-part series on men's health, focus on the body, the mind, and the soul. Stay tuned. Have a blessed weekend, and congratulations once more, Dr. Aku, for the release of your single. And Valentine Zeng, thank you so much for honoring our invite, even though you're not too well, but you agreed to come on our show. Cham, thank you once more. I know Mom will surely be watching you, and she's probably very proud of you. So thank you so much, guys. Stay blessed. Have a great weekend, but continue being safe because COVID is still very, very present in our midst. And take care. Oh, thank you so much, everyone. It's a blessing having you today. I've learned quite a lot, and I hope you have as well. Share, invite your friends to learn. You also watch a replay if you were not able to watch the live show. It's AC. Stay blessed, stay tuned, stay safe, and love you always. Bye-bye.